the hospital is closed, and those 2,000 people now have to drive 40 miles to get to a doctor.
Yeah. Does that seem like a solution?
No.
Okay, very good.
Imagine if you will, Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil.
That's scary.
Okay, I'm gonna break rotation for a minute because Janice has to go. Janice?
Oh, boy, and I'm sorry I was late. I had another meeting and I just hate missing these discussions. So let me jump in here. I have some very good friends who are Democrats, and I respect them and I like them. And several of them have taken the time to call and say, what is with you Republicans that you do not like the Patient Protection and Affordability Care Act? Why don't you like it? And from that point, we've had a very interesting discussion. And one of the things that I have pointed out is that I believe it's unconstitutional. And the argument begins with the bill requires us to buy a specific product. And the response from all three of the friends who were engaged in this discussion have said, well, but you're required to buy a car. And I said,
Wait a minute, hold on.
no. She said, well, of course you are, because if you live in the western states, you have to have a car to do anything, and you have to buy a car. And I said, no, you don't, but you do have to buy insurance. That if you choose, you can buy a car and not drive, but if you choose to drive, then you have to have insurance, which led into a really interesting discussion of what would happen if Congress mandated that everybody in this country over the age of 18 buy a car. Now, I'm just telling you, my daughter lives in Philadelphia where parking is at a premium, and there would be howls, great howls. And we would segue into, well, you know, the government really should provide public transportation. And I said, you know, I appreciate that in dense areas, but look at the cost of it. So this is how the discussion's gone. And after the discussion, we finally got down to the core of the issue. And it turns out that my three friends are all cancer survivors. They have all had cancer. And if they lose their job, or they actually transfer insurance plans, under the current system, they have no coverage. And that's pretty doggone frightening. So is there a solution to that particular problem that is not PPACA? And the answer is yes, absolutely. But I had to go back and I made some notes to make sure that I didn't forget, because I like to read the bill. Those of you who know me know I like to read the bill. And in two places, it says in the bill that if you're over 76, cancer care may be rationed. It says, there are also other boards that will, if you're at a cancer hospital, cancer hospitals will ration care based on age. Now, I don't find that fair at all. I don't find that at all fair. And so what we have is a problem in our discussion about the details. I was listing all the things that I found to be unconstitutional, including requiring everybody to buy insurance. And one of the solutions that I offered was, you know, maybe it is time to allow us to buy insurance across state lines. Now, do you all remember why it was limited to various states? I will tell you, and it's a horrible thing, it was based on economic development. So you need to watch that term. So that within each state, the insurance entities actually had a captive audience. It had nothing to do with whether or not it was fiscally sound. And are we willing to give up that amount of economic development in order to provide access to insurance? But at the end of the day, this discussion always gets down to insurance. And with my three friends, we never discuss health care, ever. We discuss insurance. And to me, the debate is over whether or not we are going to have access to health care. And I see them as two different entities. And I have to tell you, I have not resolved that part with my friends because they see them as one and the same. So I bring up other points like, do you realize that in this bill, not only will it take proceeds from the sale of your home, and I'm often told by my friends, oh, that's only if you have $1 million house. Well, no, it's not. It's if your house sells for $200,000 or more. So who knows what the mean average selling price of a house in Albuquerque is?
225.
There you go. So it pretty well hits everybody. And that's a 3.8% hit on every home sale. I don't like that. But I also do not like that as the tax portion, and there are several places in this bill that says that a tax is not a tax. I find that to be specious. But then there's the piece that allows the federal government to tap your bank accounts without any additional authorization. It's right there. And so here we have this mega solution that quite frankly makes more problems in my mind. But I think you're right, for each one of us here, we have to find a way to talk with our counterparts who are facing the same problems that we are facing in ways that do not include buzzwords. You know, I have to tell you, if you all are not certain, my sister is a union steward for the Teachers Federation in the state of Washington. And I have had to, yes, it's very interesting. And I have had to discipline myself to make sure that I don't use buzzwords so that it stops the conversation. And so I want to throw out there, you know, we're not going to solve this problem if we don't have a dialogue with more people about what's really in this bill and what's really threatening us. And we have to find a way to do this so that they don't shut down before you get, I have a list, I haven't even raised all the list of constitutional issues. So I'm going to just throw this out to you. How are we going to change how we talk so that this information can be shared broadly?
There you go.
You said that
I
you
got
have
it.
those.
I have
You
several
said-
solutions.
Yeah, okay, so a person has got cancer and they're losing their insurance, so start there. How do they get taken care of without this bill?
Well, one, I think that the issue for me is, should we look at the insurance laws? And I believe that there are ways to stop dropping people just because you move from employer to employer. If you're going to engage in insurance, then you insure the entire entity. Is that a harsh reality for that industry? Yes, but I think that would be a better solution than this.
Janice, don't you find it ironic that the many of the people that support Obamacare, including the members of the AARP, are going to be victims of the death panels that we've been talking about all along, that the Democrats always said don't exist. There's no such thing as a death panel. And the bill has a 12-member board that's going to be making decisions about whether or not senior citizens get their health care funded. And the senior citizens are voting for something that's going to end up resulting in the plug pull on them.
Well, I'm saying, so here are some of the phrases in the bill that just trouble me. The government will impose a prohibition on hospital expansion except a community may ask for a waiver. What's that mean? What's that mean? So there, you know, and sometimes, and I think Judge Walker was hitting on it, sometimes too many laws is just flat too many laws. And instead of making it easier, quite frankly, we are building so many impediments to access to health care. And I want to go back to what my friends are concerned about. They want to be able to see a doctor. I want to be able to see a doctor. But there's nothing in this program that assures that. In fact, it limits the amount of pay doctors can receive because their wages are literally going to be set. It's not their pay, but what they can charge for services. I don't know how you describe that as anything other than deciding what doctors are going to be paid. And so, you know, those are the things that really concern me. But Jim, I do think there's solutions. One, the simple one is let's look at the insurance piece. And let us, you know, maybe it is time to say, in this industry, dear insurance people, can you make this by, if you sign somebody up and they now have a pre-existing condition, if you have cancer and you have gone from your employer to now being retired, should you lose your insurance just because that happened in your life? And I think that's a different discussion. Should you be able to should the insurance companies be free to maximize their market by going across state lines? I think they should. I think there are other things to look at. But at the end of the day, is health care free? And if you look at this bill, one of the free parts is if you are here illegally, you will still get coverage. Whether you're, you know, and one of my friends did say, well, why don't we make anybody who enters the country illegally prove that they have insurance? I thought that was a remarkable solution. But I think that there are simpler solutions, and as I look at this bill, the fact that it's so overwhelmingly complicated, I think does a real disservice to Americans.
Let me jump right in.
Very quick, yeah, very quick.
This is the first federal bill for insurances. There's been no federal insurance bills before this. One reason we have statewide insurance only, besides economic development, because the states regulate the insurance industry, some better than others. And that's my next comment. I was gonna make it about the insurance. You complained about the insurance. But in Obamacare, they took $500 million away from Medicare. They have insurance, you know, the supplemental programs, B and D. The private insurance comes in and you know, I just turned 65 and I can wallpaper my house with all the offers. I'm still on my wife's state insurance, but I really don't have a clue in the world why they can differentiate themselves for about the same amount of money and that we'll take care of everything. What does everything mean?
Right. Arthur, go ahead.
I'm going to say very briefly, there is a pool of catastrophic cancer survivors in the federal government, but the threshold is dictated by income, and it seems to be an artificially low number before you qualify. But it also looks like we're trying to compromise the for-profit model of health insurance, and that in itself, when you put it in those terms, you're asking the industry to accommodate us. We're taking, you know, we're disrupting their model, their way of doing business, and if you're just playing the shell game of money, asking the federal government to pay them their due, or we pay it as individuals, yeah, we're still playing the for-profit game on healthcare.
Yeah, but eventually, if they eliminate the insurance model entirely, and all the insurance is gone, and government controls all this, inefficiency goes through the roof.
Right.
And that anything government's involved in
And
is
rationing is
inefficient.
probably gonna be more likely.
But
Okay.
you're still appeasing the for-profit model.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna go back to rotation in a minute, but I got two quick comments back here. Mike, you had a comment?
Well, I was riding up in the elevator at Presbyterian with a couple of doctors, and we were discussing this. And one of the doctors said something that just left me completely, you know, speechless. He said, well, we just simply have to take the profit motive out of healthcare. Period. His doctor was going up for test for his own skin cancer.
Yeah. There you go. Okay, Dolores?
Has anyone mentioned that the government will require every citizen to have their health care? If not, the IRS will come after you if you do not pay. Has anyone mentioned that or thought about it? We will be forced to take government health care
Right.
if Obamacare is not
Let me jump in
defeated.
because Dolores, you bring up probably the most troubling aspect of this bill. Not only does this piece of legislation allow unauthorized access to your tax returns by the government for this purpose, but it also couples that with access to taking money from your bank accounts. I find that to be so frightening. Those are the mechanisms, at some point, you as an individual still should have the right to make those decisions, but clearly this piece will take that away.